every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
You need the right people in the right place at the right time. And sometimes you have the right people in the right place, but at the wrong time.
I've got to keep going forward. I've got to keep looking for revenue streams. I've got to keep looking for growth, keep looking at new ways of doing things.
But, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development programme I don't really want to be here.
Scaling a business is not necessarily that easy. If it were, we wouldn't have the vast majority of businesses remaining below 10 employees. However, there are some sound principles of successfully scaling a business, and the really good news is that those principles are intrinsically linked with building a valuable business. So that means that if we're building a scalable business, then we're also building a valuable business. If you'd like to understand more about those principles and access a range of resources to help you in your scale-up journey, then why not take a look at www.bizsmarts.co.uk. That's BizSmarts, BIZSMARTS.
Hello, I'm Granger Forson, and on this week's episode of ScaleUp Radio, I'm speaking to Pia Cato, the founder and owner of the Vanilla Pod Bakery in Cheltenham. It's a business that has evolved from making cupcakes and now specialises in making bespoke wedding cakes and birthday cakes. Pia started the business in 2007 following winning a Dragon's Den type business pitch competition at university, which also came with some startup backing. Our conversation covers her journey over the years, how she overcome recessions and pandemic, and the scaling back and restart of her business 3 times. You'll hear about you can't be the centre of the business as it grows, or you just burn out. Finding key people that complement you and can take on the roles as you scale are so important. And learning from other business owners and even books to understand why your business failed and taking action so it does not happen again. It's so refreshing to hear just how passionate Pia is for her business and her customers, even after all the ups and downs, and shows how you can learn from falling into the valleys of death. Don't worry if you're not into the wedding cake industry. There is so much practical advice here for all business owners. Let's go over and hear from Pia. Hi, Pia Cato, and welcome to ScaleUp Radio this week. We'd like to introduce yourself to our audience and what your business is.
Yeah, hi Granger. As you say, my name is Pia Cato and I'm from the Vanilla Pod Bakery. It's a specialist cake bakery. We're based in Cheltenham. Ultimately, we specialise in wedding cakes, but since lockdown, we've gone back to doing celebration cakes as well, namely birthday cakes. So I set up back in 2009 and have been running it ever since.
And give us an idea in terms of your size, team and business turnover.
So we're a small team and we're turning over sort of low 6 figures at the moment. In terms of number of people we've got working for me, I've got a baker / cake decorator, another cake decorator and a studio manager plus a cleaner. And then I also outsource my bookkeeping and accounting. And we have a few sugar flour artists that work with us as well. I outsource work to them. And I'm sure there's someone else we use as well, but I can't think. But sometimes we outsource social media. At the moment, it's in-house and I'm doing it. But it's sort of trying to run it through outsourcing, but also employing people.
So 2009 you set up. What was the inspiration to do that?
Well, officially it launched in 2009, but my story is not a normal one because I was at university, the University of Gloucestershire, and I entered a business planning competition back in 2007, which I managed to win. So that sort of led me on this path to cakes. My initial idea was to set up a tea rooms in Cheltenham and serve cupcakes and champagne. And I presented this idea to sort of a board of, at the time, they were older people. I thought they were quite old. Now I'm getting older. I'm like, they probably weren't as old as I thought they were. But it was very much sort of Dragon's Den style. And I had to pitch a business plan, which I'd spent a year creating and had to do a formal pitch and have a presentation and everything. But yeah, I managed to win it somehow. I'm still really unsure how I won it because it was such a shock. But I did also know if I didn't win it, I'd still be doing what my business plan had set out in motion. So yeah, I won that in 2007 and had this big debate whether to just quit uni and go straight into the business or finish my degree and then go into it. I chose to finish my degree. So I sort of put on hold for a bit. The tutors at uni started paying for me to create cakes and paid for me to create cakes. So I was sort of dabbling in it. But officially, I launched it in 2009 after I'd graduated.
Wow, so that's an interesting way of starting by winning a competition.
Yeah.
Did you have a passion then to build a business from a long time ago, or is it something that just happened at uni?
I've always wanted my own business. My family all have their own businesses. My parents, my grandparents. I also used to suffer from ME. So part of the reason of wanting my own business was so I could set my own hours. But I'm sure as many people are aware, when you have your own business, your own hours are not necessarily what you thought they would be in the beginning. But it just allowed me to be able to have naps and to work on my own time frame rather than someone else's. But yeah, I've always wanted my own business, and the cake idea randomly came to me. It was before the cupcake craze probably took off in England. And at the time, cupcakes were becoming quite a big thing in America. But I don't know how I got this idea, but I did. And then sort of 6 months to a year later, suddenly cupcakes were everywhere. So I caught it right at the start. So when I graduated uni, how I got my business out there was I went through Business Link and went on farmers markets, got funding from the Fredericks Foundation. They're not around in Cheltenham. They might still be around parts of the UK, but they were really brilliant to me, as well as my university, because I actually won some funding. I think I won £3,000 for winning the competition. I can't quite remember, but that helped me start on the journey.
Well, a fantastic start and an amazing background in terms of your family all in owning their own businesses and sort of in your blood in terms of doing things. So take us through your business model. You talk about making wedding cakes and birthday cakes. So how do you do that?
So as I sort of hinted, we started on farmers markets and actually started making cakes from my student house, which was lovely and clean, by the way. But I've grown it so that we specialise in sort of high-end wedding and birthday cakes. And the business model that I currently have is that we work from a premises in Cheltenham and we bake to order. So we get our leads and inquiries from our website and a lot of word of mouth through wedding venues and through people just getting married and telling their friends and family. But I suppose, yeah, it's sort of a bake to order model. I don't want us to be a factory. I don't want us to have stock, so to speak. We will create something special. You can go on our website and click and buy a cake and we will customize it to your specifications, or you can come to us direct and we'll offer a whole couture service where we design the cake with you. You can taste the flavors. We put the flavors that we have on offer into your cake. We can deliver it and set it up. And I really want it to be a whole experience. So it is very different from going to Tesco's and buying a cake.
Absolutely, especially for the very special day of a wedding. So you started with cupcakes and you moved into the wedding cakes and the design. So was that something that you were creative at, or did you bring somebody in the business to help you grow and develop that?
No, it's been me mostly. Maybe 5 years ago, I started thinking, I can't just keep doing this all by myself. Years and years and years ago, I did have employees. I've never had full-time employees. They've always been part-time. But I think I was just too young and I didn't really know what I was doing. So I wasn't the best manager. And unfortunately, whereas I started in the recession, but the recession didn't sort of hit the cake world until a couple of years later. So I was in a premises at this point, and I remember having to get rid of all my staff and my premises because I was literally about to go under. So I had to move it back into my house. I've done a lot of sort of climbing up the ladder and then falling back down again. And that's happened twice with moving into premises, it not working out, it costing me too much money because of what I thought would happen didn't happen. And then I've had to go back down the ladder. So in terms of growing my team, I have had employees 15 years ago. Then I sort of went down a freelancer model and just had freelancers come and help me. Actually, it was COVID.
Yeah.
So I'd handed in my notice to my premises that I was in before COVID, just before COVID kicked in. So I was always due to move out. COVID hit. The wedding industry went to pot, which was very scary. But at the same time, you knew it was going to come back, because although you didn't really know what to do, not many of our clients cancelled. We knew that they were going to just keep postponing. So what I'm trying to get at is I moved out of the premises I was in, which is in Fairview in Cheltenham, moved it back home during COVID. One freelancer who's been absolutely amazing has stayed with me all this time. She and I sort of worked in our respective houses. And then when I moved back into a new premises in August 2020, I knew that this time I'll keep my one freelancer, but actually I wanted to go and employ people because I wanted to sort of start afresh. And I thought this time when I'm employing people, I want it to be so that they're helping to support me and I'm going to move myself out of the business slowly but surely. I've had so many ups and downs that I was ready to let go of a lot of stuff. Whereas before, I think the reason I couldn't employ people properly was because I just wasn't ready to let go. And I wanted full control over everything.
So I was going to explore a little bit more of that in terms of, because I think that would be a really interesting conversation in terms of that. So you twice moved out of premises because your plans didn't deliver what you thought they were going to deliver, you said, in terms of that. You've also intimated here in terms of not being able to let go. So what's your learning then from those first two events in terms of having to scale back and then start again?
Definitely the first time I had to move premises, I had never got to a stage where I could let go. I was so involved. I was baking, I was cake decorating, I was trying to manage my health, I was talking to customers, I was doing consultations, I was doing the markets. And slowly but surely, I mean, I did have people helping me, but I never let them help me enough. I think it was definitely to do with like a money thing. I hadn't priced what we were doing correctly as well. And the premises that I was in was really lovely. It was in Formal House in Cheltenham. It was basically the size of a cupboard. And I paid a premium for being in a central location. But it was my first premises and I was only 23. So it was very exciting. But yeah, this thing was I couldn't let go and I didn't know how to because I hadn't necessarily been taught that. Because while most of my family are self-employed, they're all self-employed. Only sort of a few of them have sort of grown it beyond themselves. My parents have a business, but they're very hands-on. Their business is completely different to mine. So they're in antiques, I'm in cakes. So it's a very different business, but I always knew that I didn't want to be as involved with them, but I just didn't know how to get out of it. The second time I went into a premises, I went in with the view slightly further out of town. I had an upstairs and I thought I was going to be able to rent it. I was there for 18 months. No one ever wanted to rent above, which meant I couldn't really afford the rent. So I was never able to get ahead of myself. I was constantly trying to manage the cash flow. So again, I could only employ freelancers. And again, I probably should have asked for more help, but I just didn't know how to. Third time round, I'm trying to go about it a different way. I'm trying to employ people who have a different skill set to mine, who complement me. So our studio manager is amazing. We are sort of yin and yang in terms of our personalities. We all get on really well in the studio and we all complement each other. So as I mentioned, my freelancer, she's still with us, which is brilliant. And then we've got a junior cake maker / decorator, and she's also amazing. So I feel like at the moment we've just got a really tight team and I'm trying to let go so that they can be empowered and help move the business forward rather than me just sort of being everything.
Yeah, some fantastic learning in terms of that, in terms of realizing that you have to empower your people to be successful for you and letting go. It's a very hard thing for any business owner when you worked on your own for so long to be able to do that. But it's that important stepping stone, the ladder of success, as you talk about, you've got to climb to learn that delegation and those skills. So you've been learning that all the way through.
Yeah,
trial and error.
I've never really worked for anyone else. So I've dabbled in it and I've done a bit of freelancing myself. So I understand it from like a freelancer. So my degree was in marketing. So I've sort of dabbled in a bit of freelance marketing here and there. And I had to shift the business home. And when I shifted from doing farmers markets to mainly focusing on bake to order wedding cakes, there's sort of a lag time that I needed to be able to live. So I did some freelance marketing and social media. But yeah, having worked in a business where you can see how people delegate, I've never seen that. So I'm literally, it's trial and error every single day. I do read a lot of business books. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I've done a few courses to try and help me get ahead, because I do love learning about business and how things work in that respect.
Yes, I know we both have a passion for Mike Michalowicz's books. And
oh yes, I'm obsessed. Yeah, but they've really been helpful. You know, when you want to learn from someone who's done what you're trying to do. And I've always had big ambitions for Vanilla Pod. Like when I first submitted my business plan, I wanted a chain of tea rooms across the southwest. I've never just wanted one thing. My ambitions for Vanilla Pod now are slightly different. I don't necessarily want the tea room route. So I'm never going to say never, because I do go back on my word and like add, for instance, I did birthday cakes. So at one point I was saying I'd never add birthday cakes into the mix, but I've gone down that route again. But at the moment, I'd love to be able to franchise what I've created. When I first started Vanilla Pod, there's a lot of cake makers I knew that started at the same time as me, and none of them are in business anymore. And I think that's really sad, because they had a passion for it. They just couldn't make the financials work or the business side of it work. So it then becomes so draining and so time consuming, and you start resenting it. So they've all come out of business. Whereas if we were able to franchise the model, I know it can make money and I know it can be sustainable. You know, you could help other people who just want to make cakes for a living but want it a bit more packaged so they've got support.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah. What makes you different? What do you sort of strive to be best at?
You know what? I always hate this question, because I don't think I've ever figured out what makes us truly different. One thing is, I mean, I'm very determined as a person, so I won't ever give up. I could have given up, 3 times at least. But
Very much so, yes.
I haven't reached my ultimate goal yet. There's no way I'm giving up. So I suppose we're consistent in that respect. I'm really hot on customer service, and we have to make a fantastic cake. But I think customer service, people are so used to not having customer service nowadays that even if you can do sort of 10% over what everyone else does, then in terms of customer service, then I think people just remember you a bit more. So I love customer service touch points and making people feel really special. And it gets more challenging the more customers we have. But, you know, that's something I just have to try and figure out. And we do have to automate a few bits of our customer service now. But I'm still really keen that we have actual human contact as well. Makes us slightly different is that now we have more people in the business that we can focus more on customer service than when it was just myself. But other than that, I don't really know what differentiates us. I mean, we make amazing cakes. They look good. They taste good. And no, I probably need something a bit more like, on the ball.
Maybe something to explore. Yes, absolutely. You need to keep saying that. So, okay, let's just talk a little bit about your marketplace then. So, you know, how competitive is the wedding cake industry in terms of, are they all one man, one person businesses, or are there more companies out there as well?
It depends where you are in the market. So when I first started out all those years ago, and I wasn't charging what I should be charging, so basically a lot of cake makers are in that situation where they're making cakes from home because they're really good at it, and people have said you should start selling these. That part of the market is very competitive, which is why people don't price accordingly. You know, on average, it takes for a basic birthday cake, it's going to take anywhere between 5 to 10 hours, yet people are charging £50 for a cake like that. Clearly not viable. So as we've changed our prices and as we've developed our skill set and got further, higher up the scales, so to speak, it's less competitive where we now are, but people have higher expectations. So our clients have higher expectations. Our clients are wonderful. They're really lovely. We're so lucky that we don't really get bridezillas or groomzillas that people seem to go on about in the wedding industry. Our clients are relaxed. They're fun. They like luxurious things. They like personal service. So it's less competitive up here, but there's a few bigger companies around. There's more one-person bands than there are the type of cake companies that we are. And there's a lot more in London. Around where we are locally, there's a few premises-based wedding cake businesses with teams, but most, I suppose, are in the big cities.
And does the marketplace change, or is it fairly constant? I mean, apart from COVID, of course.
Yeah, do you know what? One of the reasons as well I went into wedding cakes was because people associate having a wedding cake as a need. So there will always be a need for a cake. And then obviously COVID happened And then there wasn't a need for a wedding at all. So obviously the cake part went out the window. But the market, it changes slowly in terms of like trends and designs. So because a lot of people book their weddings, well, the average is between 6 months to 2 years that people book their weddings. And then because they're booking their venue, they're then going to book suppliers like cake makers and photographers. So things do change, but it's at a really slow rate. Birthday cakes, trends change a lot quicker. And on the whole, people aren't as precious about birthday cakes as they are about wedding cakes. Even when we're doing, some really cool, elaborate 30th birthday cake, if we were doing the same thing for a wedding cake, there's just more touch points. People want it to be even more special than the birthday. So we accommodate that.
So there's more opportunity for that customer service element that you talked about being really important to the high-end wedding cake.
And we would offer exactly the same service if someone did want a high-end birthday cake and they wanted the design process. I don't differentiate the fact that someone's coming in for a wedding versus a birthday. If they're having the same cake and they're having the same service, they're paying the same amount. If they're having different services and different things, then obviously I'll charge accordingly. I'm really strong. I don't want to just put, people put wedding on the front of things and then dramatically change the price. Whereas if people put birthdays on, then the price changes. Obviously, there's reasons why people do that, but I think if you're having the same cake or service from us, no matter if it's a birthday or a wedding, you're going to pay the same.
So you started with cupcakes. What was the sort of moment of change that you realised or you made that decision? And was it an instant change or was it something you then had to build and grow?
I started with cupcakes because they were, I suppose, very easy to create, and that's what I wanted. I wanted this whole tea room with champagne and dainty little cakes. I went into the wedding world because people started asking me on the markets, can I do their wedding cake as a cupcake tower? And then because I started going into weddings with the cupcakes, people started asking me for tiered cakes. I was customer led. I never went into my business plan thinking I was going to go into weddings. It was all about tea rooms. And I just found that I really liked the high-end wedding side of things because I really like this customer service touch points and going on someone with them on a journey because it's less transactional. You're with a couple for anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. So you get to know them quite well. So that's sort of how it evolved. We still make cupcakes and we've actually got on our website, you can just click and buy cupcakes and we'll bake them to order because I still like making them. I think they're fun, they're cute, they're very versatile. And actually, since COVID, cupcakes for wedding cakes have come back into fashion because, everyone has their own individual cake and they're all wrapped up, basically.
So your customers were leading you through asking questions of what that led you into the sort of the wedding cake marketplace, and you've really found a passion and an enjoyment in that.
Yeah,
built your business around it. Wow, brilliant. Mm-hmm.
It's a lovely industry to be in, and there's many opportunities as well.
So let's explore a bit more about your journey and its ups and downs and learnings from it. So we've talked about not being able to let go and delegate and find the right people already, but you also mentioned about pricing and pricing errors you made in the early days. What did you mean by that, and what did you learn from that?
I've had so many issues with pricing. So when I first set up my business plan and I did it to do with cupcakes, my pricing was perfect for that time. What happened was I didn't review it. So I started adding birthday cakes and I benchmarked myself against other people. And I did that with wedding cakes. So I saw someone was selling a cake for £40. So I was like, oh, well, that's what the market rate should be. I'll sell it for £40. Doesn't work like that. Especially in cakes. Everyone's hopes, desires, dreams, overheads and everything is vastly different. So while I had such high overheads and I was trying to sell a cake for £40, and as I said, the average cake takes between 5 to 10 hours. There's only so many you could make in a day/a week. So that was basically never going to work. And at one point, I do remember feeling like I was literally just throwing money down the drain because farmers markets were dwindling because the recession was properly tightening people's belts. So you go to a market with stock, you come back with the same stock. And you can't do anything about it but throw it away. So that was really disheartening. So that's one of the reasons why we moved out of flash premises. But over the years, I've developed how to price properly. And I've got a whole spreadsheet about how to price for wedding cakes. And it's something I actually used to teach years ago when I we're working from home. I started helping mentor people because they kept coming up to me going, how are you making this work? And I made it work from home really, really well. And then we moved to a premises and you have to start again because it's slightly different because you've got a bigger team, more overheads and everything. But pricing has been a really steep learning curve. I just like making cakes. So you'd have to fight with you just want to make cakes for someone, make them happy, but you actually got to charge them. So yeah, over the past few months, everything has gone up. All of our raw ingredients have doubled in price. So we've had to look at our pricing strategy again. And it does mean that we are definitely at the higher end of the cake making community. But I also don't work from home and I've got a team and we have to all live.
So there are some times in your journey that you must have felt overwhelmed by it all. How have you coped with that? How have you come out the other end and carried on and grown?
Yeah, there's absolutely tons and tons of times where I feel overwhelmed. And I think partly it's quite difficult. I've been doing it by myself. I met my boyfriend 5 years ago and he has been like a rock because before that I was always phoning my mum, so crying down the phone to her. I'd always pick myself up. As I say, I'm very determined. I'm never going to give up. When I got with my partner and I realised I had someone to lean on a bit, things just got a bit easier. That's really helped. And then as I've grown my team, the current team I have, I feel that they're not leaning on them, but their input is really valuable. So it's not just me, because it's hard when it is just you.
Yes.
You can't bounce ideas around. You just have to go with what you think's right. And you think something's right and then you end up at a dead end or you fall back down the ladder. And I've had some amazing experience over the years, but there's also been, as I say, lots of ups and downs. And I don't know if I'd change anything. So I don't know if I'd be the person I am now. I probably could have done things easier, but I didn't know how to do it at the time.
We learn from failure as much as we learn from success in terms of doing that. So I'm interested also then you talked about you had to let your first team go in terms of the recession hit, etc., in terms of doing stuff. But you also talked about that finding the right people now has really helped you grow and also, manage the business, in terms of doing stuff. So you talk about people that complement you rather than that in terms so you can pass on. How have you gone about finding those people that are the right fit for you now as a business?
2020, I outsourced my HR, and I think that's really helped me, because before I was always trying to hire people completely by myself. Literally, if someone turned up and said they wanted a job, I'd be like, yeah, okay, come in, have a look. So what you can do. That's probably not the best way. So hiring an HR person to help, on a retainer basis to help me, has been amazing, because they've just definitely got my back and they make me question why I need this type of person. And so definitely having them has helped. But now with my studio manager, she loves HR. So she's also helping with that and helping us grow the people in our team so that they can... I'm really strong about having a good work-life balance. And I want people to be fulfilled, not only in their working life, but their personal life as well. I'm really good at showing people what I want, but then actually when it comes to doing it, I'm not great. So that's what Jo, the studio manager, she's really good at. She's going to definitely help people stick to their path as I sort of swoop in and go, this is what we should be doing, and then swoop out. But finding people is hard. I always like to take a chance on people as well, and that's probably why I would just sort of hire anyone, because I always think there has to be something somewhere in someone that will excel in whatever they're doing. So
you must have sort of changed the culture between previous iterations of the Vanilla Pod and where you are today in terms of doing that for people to be successful in your team. What do you think you've influenced or changed?
I suppose letting people into knowing what I want to do as a business a bit more, rather than being the master. I always have a thing about being called boss. I'm not very I don't feel like a boss. So I suppose I wanted to sort of be everyone's friend, but also I'm leading them and I never let them in to what I actually wanted. So that was really tricky. Whereas now I'm trying to get to grips with the fact that I'm the leader, but I don't have to necessarily be horrible. I don't have to be a horrible leader. I can let people that are talented and people that are clever and they can do things by themselves. They don't need someone micromanaging them. And I suppose I never realised that till a few years ago.
Yeah, we talk about the scale-up journey. One of the key things is learning that delegation. And initially, we always delegate the things we don't like doing. But then eventually, as the business grows, we've actually got to start delegating the things we do like doing. And that's the real change point that takes place in a leadership's journey as they build their business. So, yeah, you're at that sort of point, really, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. I've got the ScaleUp system book as well. I have been reading that. So I can definitely see where I am on like the manager sort of journey, and I need to, then the next sort of, was it like ladder, I suppose, is it the entrepreneurial?
Yeah, the entrepreneurial scale up.
Yeah, sort of, as I say, keep falling off and going down.
Yes, you've got caught in those valleys of death. Absolutely,
I have, totally. Yes, yeah.
And one of those valleys then is the cash pillar, and maintaining cash. So you've gone through the crisis mode of cash. So how do you keep an eye on cash, and what tips do you use?
Cash is still a challenge, but we do use McAllowitz Profit First. I've got little pots in my bank, and I save for tax, for owners' share, for profit, for salaries, and some other ones I can't remember now, or marketing. I think that's all.
Yeah.
So that really, really helps. And when they're like at certain points, I'm in a bit like crisis mode. But when above certain points, then I just feel so much calmer. Whereas when I wasn't doing that and everything was in one pot, I was just permanently stressed and challenged, because you're like, I just don't know if I have enough for anything. But yeah, I'd love to be able to not worry about cash, but it's been a constant worry that I've now got so used to. And I know that literally like hour by hour it changes. So I suppose in our world we're really fortunate, the fact that people do book their weddings very far in advance. I can look to next year and tell you what is in the diary already. So it's nice to have that sort of base. And the summer's always busier and the winter's always quieter. So yeah, I suppose my managing cash, definitely use Profit First, because it really, really helps.
And then you've had to change your marketing approach. You go to market, and you went to the farmers markets initially, which is a great marketing approach. And then you evolved in terms of what you're now doing. You talked about your website, but what are your key marketing strategies that really work for you?
Definitely the website. If we don't have a website, we literally have no orders. Meeting venues and wedding planners actually bring in majority of our leads. Also, Instagram is really good for us, and Pinterest. And then just making sure we sort of keep our name out there. Wedding magazines used to be really good, but unfortunately the wedding magazine world seems to be dwindling. And wedding blogs, they're also great. Brides and grooms go on blogs, read about it. So that's part of my strategy for the next sort of 6 months, is to get us on more blogs. We do these things called styled photo shoots. Wedding industry suppliers come together and collaborate. We all just gift our services or products, have a photo shoot. Whoever organises it, submits it to a blog, and then our names are on there. We all share it on social media. Quite nice, because you work collaboratively. You get to meet people, and it shouts about what you do. I also do the odd wedding fairs, but we're sort of trialling not doing as many as we once did.
So is there anything about the wedding cake industry that really sort of drives you crazy, and if you had a magic wand you would change?
The industry or the customers?
Well, could be both.
All of our customers are wonderful. I suppose what most people don't realise is how much effort and time goes into creating a cake, or how much effort and time goes into creating one person's wedding day. There are so many suppliers involved, and this is why weddings cost quite a lot of money, because it's just a vast number of people that you're employing on one day to create this magical moment. So yeah, we get a lot of people who are sometimes shocked at what we charge, because we're not benchmarking against everyone else, and we have to charge that because it takes so long to create a cake, to create a bespoke cake that's been made from scratch just for that person. If I had a magic wand, I'd make sure more people appreciate how long it takes.
Yes. Wow, fantastic. The story and your journey so far, from 2007 and cupcakes and going to do into champagne, though champagne's probably popped in the background now with your cakes in the foregrounds, and the way that you pivoted and changed based on your clients' questions to you and thoughts, the ups and downs of moving into places and then recessions and moving out and losing teams. An inspirational journey that you've been on now in terms of how to build a team that it's successful for you rather than you telling them what to do. It's a fantastic journey and story that you've taken us through. So let's look forwards now in time. So if we were meeting in 5 years from now and we were looking back, what would have been taken place for you both professionally and personally to consider the last 5 years a success?
Well, I definitely would want a team, solid team. I want my solid team still in place. Probably have a few more employees because we would have grown. And I would have loved to have started 1 or 2 franchises by then. Like 5 years ago, I said I wanted to start a franchise by now. Obviously, that wasn't possible. So yeah, in 5 years' time, definitely having 1 or 2 franchisees would be amazing. And in my personal life, I'd love to be married. But obviously, I've got to leave that to my boyfriend to decide. So,
and one of your cakes on the.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely get my team to design and create the cake for us.
Absolutely, yes, and you definitely can't be involved in that one.
He's going to kill me.
And what are your goals for this year?
This year, it's all about promoting more wedding cakes and adding more cakes onto the website so that people can buy them. We still want to be able to stay customizable. I don't want it to be buy something that we have in stock. We'll always make it for you, but we need to add more to the website. And yeah, just sort of continuing as we are, growing one step at a time.
Well, Pia, thank you very much for speaking with me today. There were some fantastic takeaways in this podcast, and our listeners have got some great thoughts that you've come and shared with us. Absolutely brilliant. So what we finish off with is just a little quick fire round. So it's sort of first things that come to your mind when I ask these questions. Okay, so if you'd go back to a younger you, what would your advice be?
I would say listen to people and take measured risks, I suppose.
Which books do you recommend?
Profit First by Mike Malkovich. I can never say his name, but yeah. And basically anything he's written, and also obviously the ScaleUp system.
The entrepreneurial ScaleUp system. Thank you. What podcasts do you listen to?
Well, I listen to yours. I also listen to the Clockwork podcast. So it's to do with Mike Malkovich and how he tries to run your business like clockwork. Built to Sell, I also listen to. It's really good. And I've got a bit of a woo-woo one. I like listening to Denise Duffield Thomas. So it sort of taps into my more spiritual woo-woo side of setting up a business.
So what apps do you have on your phone that add the most benefit to you?
I use Buffer for social media scheduling. And I think I've pretty much got most business apps on my phone. But yeah, Buffer's really good because it's time saving and I can just schedule some social media into it.
Who has had the most influence on you as a business leader?
Most influence, I suppose, Mike Malkovich. And I really like Jo Malone. I really liked reading her book because I found that inspiring. Because as a female entrepreneur, there's not as many in the limelight as there are males. So I do want to read more about women. So yeah, I found Jo Malone. It's been really inspirational.
How can people get hold of you?
You can visit my website, which is vanillapodbakery.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, which I think is just my name, Pia Cato. And then on Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram. I think that's it, yeah. They're either Vanilla Pod Bakery or Vanilla Pod Chelt.
Well, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today. And your story is a fantastic one and really shows the thoughts behind the scale-up journey and how you can get stuck in those valleys of death, but also how you can come out of them as well. So thank you, Pia, for your time.
Thank you, Granger.
Don't forget to take a look at www.bizsmarts.co.uk to access a great range of resources to help you in your scale-up journey. So that's bizsmarts.co.uk, which is bizsmarts.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.